Please, let's welcome Zayne. She's a lead developer evangelist, is that correct?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. She has been in Portland, she's flying back tomorrow to Minnesota, so she has been all over. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I'll pass the baton.
Awesome, and then this is the part of the night where the excitement will pause while I set up my computer. It's great to be here. Thank you, Zayne, for inviting me.
Yeah, computers!
No stickers. Here's the sticker. No judgment.
Sometimes you get worried about things not being balanced, and then what if you have too many stickers and you want to add a new favorite one and you can't cover one up?
Yeah. You don't need to make it.
And then you realize you wasted an entire day agonizing over sticker designs and have built something instead. So welcome to my life.
I'm also great at shouting, so that may happen naturally as well. I want to make sure that for anyone for whom shouting is not enough, we're doing what we can. Okay, so great. I have a few slides, and then I also have a little bit of a demo. So we'll hop into the slides, and I will wing it without my clicker, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm Zayne, and I work for Salesforce talking to developers about how to build on our platform, especially when you want to do things like build and code, and especially when you want to build and code with our newest technologies. It's my favorite thing to do. Woo! So tonight I'm super excited to be talking to you about modularizing your org, and your metadata, and Salesforce DX. So how you combine this. Yes. So the best slide in history are forward-looking statements to remind you that if you came here tonight to make purchasing decisions, that's a plan that you could have had, but you should not make those decisions based on any of the amazing future-looking technology statements I may make, which I may make, and only make them based on our current completely awesome technology. Deal? Yeah. Woo!
Can you go back? I wasn't finished reading that.
It is available online. And I'm not kidding. Thanks, Daniel.
It's trucks.
Thank you. Awesome. So let's practice. Yeah. Oh, we're back in business. Okay. So you may have seen some of these slides before. This is why I like clickers, because this is what I do. Salesforce DX is really about how you're delivering your apps on the platform. And that means delivery in its fullest sense of the word, from how you're building them, how you're starting things out, all the way to what's in production and how is it living in production. And it's based on a few concepts. The team behind Salesforce DX, of which we have some in the room. Stand if you're with the Salesforce DX team. About the CLI, because she's going to be building the roadmap and helping bring new things into the CLI. So she's awesome, and thank you for joining us. So the Salesforce DX team talked to a lot of developers and said what's great about our tooling, what's not so great about our tooling, and they talked to developers who were both using Salesforce and had chosen explicitly to not use Salesforce as well. And from those conversations came this framework of we have to improve the tooling for our people. And we want to do it with some fundamental shifts in maybe how you would expect us to build tools the way we have before. So we know that teams are working together more than ever. So it needs to be team first. I have to share my stuff with you and all of our stakeholders, and it's got to move from just my computer and on my org to more places. It needs to be based on open industry standards and prescriptive, so that if you expect something from a .NET framework and you expect something from, I have no idea what you might be writing tomorrow, we can standardize and agree on a common way of building plugins, using our tooling, technologies that we want to use. We also don't want to decide for you what the best tools for your team are. So we want to standardize how you can hook in your favorite IDE to our stuff, so that you can work in the way that makes sense for you. We also want to build a future where more people can do automated delivery. Whose favorite part of the day is deployment? You are actually... I'm serious, let's talk. It was my favorite time too, but it's a difficult part of the day as well. Incredibly stressful. Who's been up at 2 and 3 in the morning with a deployment that's going horribly wrong? There we are. We want to make it easier to deliver your apps faster. We will definitely be talking. And we know that we want to build things for the enterprise. Large to small, we want tools that feel professional all the time. So these are the standards behind the giant thing that is Salesforce DX. So what is Salesforce DX? It's a lot of things. So the tagline is, we're talking that it's world-class application lifecycle management for developers. What does developers mean? We'll get to that as well. But it's a lot of things. It's some of the concepts I talked about, but it's new tools, new ways of working that mean you can control the destiny of your apps more fully. Sound like a good thing?
Yes.
It is. And this is how we're getting there. We're changing the model of how you think about your apps and what the source of truth is for your apps. The DX model, when you're going from whether it's planning all the way to the way you release, is based on the idea that we want you to be able to use a version control system to control how you're building apps. We want you to be able to version out of a tool that's made to do that. And then the color coding on the slide, I had it recently explained to me, I'd never seen it before. These lighter blue places are the places where we have not built as many tools yet, or you may not do that in DX. And then as we get darker blue, this is where we've done the second part of DX, and we're building new tools, or extending our tools to support the processes you're doing. Because Salesforce DX as a thing is tools and capabilities together to let you do what you do in new ways. So we have the CLI is on here somewhere. There we go. Right there where we're coding. We're getting new text and language services, all the way then into what we're going to dive into more deeply tonight, packaging and how you're controlling your source. So I think we've all probably seen something like this or lived something like this. We have on one end the great idea, and on the other end the 3 a.m. deployment. It's going perfectly for some of us, right? And in between this, we have a lot of environments. We do this in a lot of different places, right? And in the Salesforce ecosystem specifically, we do our coding and our building and our testing maybe in a variety of environments. They sometimes overlap. And the way we move a great idea or an iteration we had in one environment to another one, well, to this point you've had two options. You can do something with the Metadata API, whether you're working with something like Ant and the Force.com migration tool, or you're running a deployment yourself out of your IDE, or you can use change sets. Who has done a Metadata API deployment of some sort? I suspect you might have. Who's worked with change sets? Okay, good. Now we're introducing a third way, which you may have used before. If you were, say, developing something in a managed package, you might have worked with packaging. But if you aren't someone who's usually trying to get people to buy your product and you want to then keep your code private, you probably weren't using managed packaging. And so you might have used something called unmanaged packages. Who's used that before or seen it? It's not the same thing. Just want to say I apologize on behalf of the vocabulary team at Salesforce, and it's not the same thing. So we have another kind of packaging, and that's what we're going to dive into. This new kind of packaging, it's a beautiful slide I did not build, is to simplify your deployments by making them repeatable. So these boxes on the screen, those packages, whether you're building for a single org and you just want to make that single org a lot tidier and a lot easier to organize, all the way to we have many orgs and many orgs over the horizon that we don't even know yet because we're going to buy a whole bunch of companies tomorrow. We can get our same stuff in more places more quickly and more regularly. That's the end game with packaging. So this giant slide is showing you a lot. And what it's saying is you don't have to choose one way of delivering. I think that's something that can seem confusing, especially as you introduce new technologies, that it can seem, oh, so then I adopt packaging and I should never use a change set again. That's not the paradigm we want. The idea is you can use package-driven development on the bottom here when it makes sense for your org and if it makes sense for your org. And we will also still support the same way of moving stuff with the metadata API and change sets, which you're going to just now see more called change set development. And the difference between these two paths is in these lovely blue dots, or orange and yellow dots. It's that idea of, is the deployment repeatable? And where's the source of truth? On the top, the source of truth is still going to be environment-based. That's why the blue dots are changing colors as we're moving over. What's in Dev Sandbox 1 is what's true for Dev Sandbox 1, what's in Dev Sandbox 2 is what's true there, and when we want to move them into, say, our first shared sandbox, it's a combination of deployments. And now this sandbox is its own source of truth. And the next time we want to move something via metadata API or change sets, that's a new set of changes, a new deployment package. And there are ways we can script this and try to regularize it, but all the time we're pulling from an org and moving it to another org. Now at the bottom, in the packaging world, we're shifting that model. We might start developing in a new environment called Scratch.org, another part of DX, and get it into then our version control. And then we might create packages out of that. And then once we've created a package, we're going to install this package in all future environments. And the source of truth for the changes moving into these orgs is going to be driven by this package.
So these works, because we're working with separate applications within the same org.
Yeah.
Because it seems that if you're using the metadata API, the change set, but also you have a package that is referencing the same class, the same component and everything.
Right.
The changes are going to be overridden, and then what's the source of truth, my Dev Pro or my so forth. So they can coexist as long as we're talking about separate.
As long as we're not creating giant anti-patterns. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, that's, I mean, if we keep using the old metadata API, when we have packages, I mean, the whole thing of source of truth gets lost.
And there's another challenge too. Not to have the bad news first. Even in a world of packaging, let's pretend we don't do metadata API deploys in our company that we're going to start tomorrow. We're only going to use package install. I can still make a change in production to something that's in a package because they're unlocked packages. So what do we do now? You're still going to have to figure it out. That's where a little thing called governance is going to help you. Who in this room's company has governance, like authentically? Right? The Salesforce people, put your hands up. So we're going to talk about a lot of amazing things, and I'm happy to show you as much CLI as possible. But the real truth is that, my friends, is the brave new world. You have to get your governance game in order to solve this problem.
Just so happens that on Friday evening we're going to be releasing a play-by-play on the plural side about governance. Just so you know, and I got 30-day passes for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want a round of applause out of my heart. That's excellent.
Woo! So you knew. I mean, we talked about this before when I gave you that bottle of scotch.
I seem to misplace that. Yes. So governance is really going to be important because you're going to be solving what feel like the same problems, but in new ways. Whose version wins? And if you're going to mix the two kinds of delivery, you're going to need to know what's going where. That's not going to go away. We're not making it easier for you to not think about your apps. We're making it easier for you to build them well. Yeah. Okay, so these slides we can definitely make sure you all have access to. These next two slides are just some sort of pointers that the DX team put together. I did not. About when you're thinking about adopting, what are some questions to ask? What are some paths? And this slide is telling us it's not all or nothing. So depending on what you want to do, there are different ways to adopt. You can start at the top, We just want to improve our tool chain and tidy up our processes a little bit. Maybe you're going to start your adoption by just implementing people who are going to use the CLI. And we're going to standardize around the fact that developers are going to interact with orgs through the CLI. If you want to improve your tool chain and extend your processes, maybe you're going to go a step farther and you're going to really start looking at stronger source control, and you're going to implement continuous integration or continuous delivery, getting that automation piece in there. And then maybe you're ready for the full meal deal and you want everything from source control and CI/CD to you're going to modularize your org, which I promise we're talking about next, and you're going to use packages. Those are sort of the spectrum of from a little all the way to a lot. These questions we're going to skip over very quickly of just how do you know when to adopt and why. And the most important one is down at the bottom here of what are the skill sets within your team? Just like we said that the brave new world is governance, what are you doing today and what do your people know today? Where are your resources? If you have a ton of DevOps people, that's great. You have a lot of the tools in place you need to have a more complex DevOps flow. If you don't, do you think it's a great idea to adopt a very complex DevOps flow without skilling up people? I'm already seeing some heads that are getting the, I think she wants me to say no here, but I really want to anyway. So these are some questions to think about. What's right for your org? Okay, so what does this look like in action? I want to take you through a little use case of how I went from an app. This was a demo org that we used for the Trailhead DX keynote. I don't know if any of you saw it. We showed a sample app saying, oh, let's look at a business that runs different office spaces and how they're using Lightning. And the app that we built for that, we wanted to take parts of that and share it out with you all in a sample app. So I started by thinking about how do we take this thing that's in a demo org and needs some changes anyway. And how do I get to, this was my initial plan or sketch for the different buckets I wanted to do. Because I wanted to start exploring with, instead of ripping out a whole giant package and just having it be in source control as a whole giant package, how do I start splitting it up? And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about modularization. Make sense? Okay, so let's look at this. So I'm here in, well, not the window that you can see, so that was a slick move that was lost. All right, we just escape full screen from PowerPoint. There we go. All right, now we're all in Salesforce together. So this is that demo org that I showed you, one of them. And the first thing I did is I went to set up and I went to the package manager, because what I wanted to do was grab some of this stuff that we built in that org and get it out. So I took the route that if you're doing the quick start, if you're reading, there's a blog post by my colleague Christoph Conrads that he wrote a while ago about converting Dreamhouse to SFDX format. Yeah, I said, yeah, exactly, it's a good one. He also took this path. There's some risks here, but what you can do is pull together an unmanaged package, that old package that's not the same kind of package, to just get metadata together, a group of metadata. And what I did to even pull this package together was I just added the Lightning app that we built for the demo. The thing that when I hit the tile switcher here, and you see it right there, I started by just adding that and seeing what came into my package. Now, I could do that because, A, I was just experimenting. B, I knew that app, and I knew that it didn't have 500 visual force pages and 110 Lightning components and 16 different tabs with 17 different language settings. I picked a not super complex piece of my org, right? And then I said, okay, let's see what I can pull out. Because the first step, if you're going to use this thing, is to not try to put your whole org in an unmanaged package. That you will not be successful doing that, just be warned. If you want to start breaking up your org, you have to start with maybe doing it right here. So I picked this app, and then if you've used unmanaged packages before, you know that it will pull in things for you, right? And then I added a few other things that I saw didn't get added, and then I went into my IDE. Who has seen Visual Studio Code in this way? Okay, great. Some of us not. So this is an integrated development environment called Visual Studio Code, and it's what a lot of the internal teams at Salesforce have started norming around because it's a great tool, actually. I enjoy using it. But what we've done is Salesforce has released what are known as plugins, and these are ways for you to get the Salesforce CLI connected to your integrated development environment. And we've taken the first step and released several here. You can also extend that if you work in a different one. If you like something like Atom, you can use our open standards-based CLI, thank you, Claire, and write your own plugins. You can also extend what we give you here and write your own plugins and release them on the exchange for Visual Studio Code. That's part of that open and prescriptive part of the model. So Salesforce has taken the first step. There are a lot of extensions here. And so in my Visual Studio Code, we can see that I have a project open, and on the bottom, this is one of my favorite things about Visual Studio Code, is that it's got an integrated terminal. So this is the same as if I was on a PC, I would be opening up like a command prompt. On a Mac, it's a terminal window, so that I can run command line things right here for myself. If I wanted to work in a different way, there's an integrated palette of, if I haven't memorized all the commands I need to know, I can just use this thing and it will start helping me finish those commands. So that's something that the plugin will give you, right? So I prefer to type out the commands because I wasn't as comfortable with the CLI myself. So I had to force myself to get good at it, and now it's actually my preferred way of working. So what I did was I ran a command that I can zoom in and show you. I did a little keyboard shortcut to get it to go really fast. But this family of commands, this FSDX Force MD API, which is Metadata API, there's a whole family of commands under the Metadata API. Because what the CLI lets you do is work with any org through different APIs. So I'm talking to that demo org I just showed you, and I'm saying, hey, demo org, I just lost my zoom in because I scrolled, go get me something. And the thing I want you to get is called the TDX18 app. And I can even say what org specifically I want to go get it from. That was a production org that I pulled it from, we used for the keynote. I could be pulling from a sandbox, I pulled from developer edition orgs, so any kind of org. And then put it in this place. Put it in a new folder. That was the first thing I did. So you can see here, we get a lovely zip folder, just like always. There are more commands you can use to then take what is, let's look at, this was the same command I just ran for you here, what I did the first time. When I unzipped it, this is what I got out, right here. So it's great. Sitting here in my IDE is some metadata, but I can't work with it in Salesforce DX yet. So the next step I did was to convert it to a format that's compatible with DX. Because behind the scenes, DX is getting even more granular about your metadata. Step one of modularizing. The way that when you pull something out like an object in the old package XML Ant world, people who are on that page with me, you know what I'm talking about. The way that those things are stored, the way particular something like fields and the object definition themselves are stored is different in the mode of DX. So when you run the conversion command, I'm going to switch to a new window where you can see where I did this. It's going to take your stuff and it's going to split it out into the XML itself is going to have a slightly different format. Not all the time, but sometimes. And some of the extensions are going to change. So it's just this intermediary step of you can't go straight from I pulled this from the Metadata API to expecting CLI commands to work. You've got to change it to talk to the new things the CLI can do. So when you pull together stuff in an unmanaged package, you don't get to control what comes in. That's part of the unmanaged label, I like to think, even though not really, but the platform decides what your dependencies are. I pulled in my Lightning app, so it said, oh, I think this is everything you're going to need to install that successfully in a new environment. I could add some things to it, I couldn't take anything away. So I had to first delete some stuff that I knew wasn't part of my package. And then I just had to start making best guesses as to how I could do something like carving out my base objects package. I'll show you that slide again really quickly. Because the first part, I'm going to show you how I did it, but the bigger part was that I began this whole modularization project with an idea. Okay, if I could imagine a world where this app is already broken up for me, what would I want to see out of it? And I decided that I was going to use deployment dependencies. So we can see that I'm going from my most independent module all the way to my most dependent modules. And I used things that usually mess up my deployments as my guide. What has to be in place when I'm deploying? Always. And then get more and more complex. So my plan was, okay, most of everything is driven out of data model. I want my base data model to be here. Then I want to pull in things like the style, the look and feel of our org that are common to every kind of app. And then I'll get more complex of, we built an Einstein bot, so I'll pull in the things that the bot needs. We built a Lightning app with some console nav and other things, I'll pull in that. We also built some Einstein analytics stuff, so I'll have that. That was my big idea of the modules I would try to find. So with that idea in mind, let's not do that again. When I had this big mass of stuff that I pulled out using an unmanaged package, now sitting here in a format that I could use with the CLI, I could just identify, oh, my base objects package. I'm just going to take this objects folder and move it over to a new, clean, empty Salesforce DX project, try to deploy it, see what happens. I gave it a slightly little bit more thought, but not a lot. Deploy it, see what happens. Look through the XML files, see what got pulled in that you didn't like. I deployed the objects folder only, and I couldn't see any of the objects because there were no tabs. So I had to go to the tabs folder. I deployed the tabs folder, and then I was like, oh man, I pulled over some Lightning component tabs. That shouldn't be in this base object package. So you can just do some basic sanity check. Just start small to sort of get a sense of where's stuff organized in the new world order, and then you move a lot faster. And then I was like, oh, okay, I know, and I'm going to bring over my fields and my layouts. There's some things I did to edit the XML of my page layout files that I knew I wanted to do things like, if you have custom quick actions, what do you do about that? If you're going to build a base objects module, if your quick action uses a visual force page, which references 17 Apex classes, and now your base objects package has Apex in it, those kinds of decisions are what you're going to be making as you're looking at this modularization. And you're going to have to think about the fact that I traded off the fact that I would then maybe have to manually deploy and activate a quick action on an object versus having a non-purely metadata model base package. Those are the kind of trade-offs you want to think about. So as I moved through this, the place I got to in the end was, let's see if we can do it this way. No. The place I got to was stored in a mono repo. This is my big one repo for this easy spaces is what the app became. And you can go get it yourself on GitHub, and I'll share the links. And I have several different modules. All these ES prefixed things are where my stuff lives. So I have my base objects, code, some styles, some images, and then a Lightning app, that reservation manager turned into space management app. And if you drill into something like the base objects folder, we have a small set of metadata living here. So I went from my great idea, just to show you overall, to the reality of this is what I ended up with. We have a mix of, I got a more complex thing down here, I got a couple more complex base packages than I anticipated, and I'm happy to talk about why. And then some stuff that I couldn't deploy, so I had to stick it somewhere. Oh, I wanted to be able to have sample data, so I had to stick it somewhere. This is my Lightning app. Oh, some of the things when I was building at the time, either I hadn't fully added all the things I wanted to release them as part of the sample app. Or I was building in the time when we were switching from one API to another, and suddenly things like bots were exposed to the metadata API that weren't before. So I created temporary holding places for stuff that I wasn't ready to package. And what you're seeing here is a mix of, these are all modules. These 1, 2, 3, 4 turned into unlocked packages. The rest haven't been packaged yet, because you can mix and match that as well. Yeah?
You briefly mentioned that you made some decisions that you were kind of forced to as you realized things you didn't know when you started. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are lots of things. Like, let's start with a positive use case. So this ES-based styles. As I started abstracting out things, I thought that the only styling information in my org was we built a custom lightning theme. So I wanted to pull the theme information and some images. And then I found out you can't deploy themes without a special permission that has to be enabled by Salesforce. Which is point one. You can get the metadata out, but you cannot push it to another production, especially without that permission. So that was a bummer. So I guess I started negative, whatever. So I had to change my plan about how I would have that theme, interact with that theme. Should I scrap the theme? I decided not to, because some of us are going to be developing with themes and you need to know how to do it. And the other thing that was important, that's the positive thing, is that we had done a lot of work on tokenizing the look and feel of our Lightning components, using design tokens. Who's used those before? Yeah. It's not the most intuitive thing to do. It's fairly simple once you've sort of wrapped your mind around what you need to do. And we had done some tokenization with this, especially because with custom themes in Lightning, it's a time when you're going to need to be able to do that more than ever before. If people are going in and changing the theme of your org, you want your components to always look and feel correct. And so we've done some design tokens, and I wanted to share those patterns in the sample app. So then this base styles package, as I started looking at the modules, it wasn't just like design tokens and a couple images. Then I realized I've done things like we have a custom, if I show you in the app, this might help more. Let me get out of my full screen again. We've done some customization with the UI as a part of the app functionality. So here, this is the app, right? And let me go into Spaces Designer. Oh, that's okay, because you know what I can do? I can launch my Scratch org. They're on the command line. There we go. Right? I just have to remember how to open a terminal window. Here we go. And let's get into the right project so I don't have to provide the alias. There we go. Open. And this tiny little command here, SFDX force org open. I'm going to hope it's not the one that Leah and I were experimenting with earlier today. Okay, cool. It may be, but that's fine. Okay, it's still here. Okay, this one doesn't have the theme deployed, maybe, or maybe it does. Okay, on the Spaces Designer, when I click into this, this is all dynamic flows and some other cool things. But this little tiny, I can click on those are pill tiles. Those are Lightning Design System pills, and we modified them a little bit to make them clickable so that you could have this moment of interaction in the UI. And that is a component that could be reused throughout the application. So can all of the events that component can listen to and absorb. There's no reason this pill has to only be used by filtering by space tag. You could use it somewhere else. That's a moment of the UI that didn't need to just live in this app. So I started seeing more and more of those things that were all over this Lightning app that I hadn't realized before. And so that's something else you're going to discover when you're modularizing, I really do believe, is that your current production org is more granular than you think. It's more brilliantly designed than you think. You just have to be slowing down enough to look at it. And that was a really great part of this process, was slowing down enough to then have a thing like, suddenly I'm not a front-end designer, as colleagues have reminded me a lot lately. But you know, like, I built some really cool stuff here in this styles folder just because I was looking at the patterns. That's all it was, is why does that pill tile have to be only clickable for the space management app? And the answer is it doesn't. That helps. Yeah?
What about things like common objects, like cases?
Yeah, so Easy Spaces right now, and the vision behind it is it's going to get more complex. It's pretty simple right now, which you'll see if you go look at the repo. But what we did do is we put in, say, things like the contact object, right? Pulling in the important custom fields that we built into our core package. This is an active debate that's going on right now, as in like the groups of us even internally at Salesforce that are looking at how are we talking to people about this process now and in the long term, and what are the patterns we're going to start talking about. Hey, give this a try. These are the risks. And we are actively debating right now. Should you build a base objects package as like a blanket statement best practice? Or is it okay to sometimes have objects here and some things here and some things here? And I mean, I definitely have my opinions that I will share on the subject, but there's not firm agreement right now. Yeah.
Can I suggest that as this is about to take off, we're about 18 months away from a giant cluster where you go into an org where people have been using this and you can't figure out dependencies and what it is done and why.
Yep.
So please err on the side of being prescriptive and saying these are the best practices.
Yes.
This is in the same way that conventions develop around how we name our methods and how we name our variables. We're going to need conventions around this really quick.
Yeah, so we've taken a first step. So I said the caveat, we haven't established this yet. Because it's such a new technology, I can't point to 6 customer orgs that have been running on it for 6 years. This is why we're still hesitant, but I agree, and the team also agrees of you need good and strong guidance built on where is it now and where's it going. So we've taken the first step of doing this, and it's a baby step perhaps, but, and I'll share the bit.ly link to this, we have a series that looks at this process I just took you through much more slowly and talks about the decisions that got made and why, and then takes you all the way through to if you're going to adopt this thing, what's going to happen, and what are you going to do then with your source control, and how are you going to control the decisions that you made about packaging all the way into there. So we've taken a first step of this is what we think is the best model right now, and we're going to give it a try.
Are there models from other languages, other platforms, other approaches to?
I mean, yes, there are, absolutely. Not using our specific tooling, but the Salesforce development model under DX is trying to bring us all into the world that people from other frameworks are much more familiar with working in every single day.
Right. Well, it seems like they probably have developed some conventions.
But even they don't agree, right? Yeah, so last night I was looking at a Twitter thread where Brett Taylor, who is with Salesforce, tweeted about how he loves mono repos for a specific reason. And I happen to love that too because I think that's a great approach for adopting packaging, I'll just say. Easy Spaces is a mono repo for many reasons. But on that thread, people had lots of other opinions about why that is true or not true. Like this has not been figured out to perfection anywhere.
Is it still a single deployment, or is there any way to have these packages be deployed separately?
Yes, there is. So if you go in let's go into the project.json. So this is, I don't know if this is the best way to see it. Actually, I'm going to do this on GitHub because I think this is going to be a better view for us. So in our Easy Spaces repo, our project.json, here we go. This is what it looks like because we're using some unlocked packages. The package directories part probably looks a little weird if you're used to the normal Salesforce DX package directory. And if not, that's cool. This is what this is. We have different packages within the package IDs up here. And right down here is the magic of you can't have this one without this one first. And as you get more complex dependencies, like all the way down here, my space management lightning app depends on 3 different packages. So it's listed here. So if I try to install space management, it's going to say, no, you don't have these other ones. You need to have those first. So that's one way of controlling the dependencies. If you're not using packaging, something that I didn't realize is that in this project JSON format, the order in which you list your package paths, if you're going to use more than one folder to hold stuff in your project, will mimic that dependency. When push happens, it will push the first package, and then the second, and then the third. Yeah.
So you're obviously pushing all of them together still, but now they have dependencies. You could push one part, or you could push all of it in one go. Is that?
Yeah. So yes, you can, and it depends on the kind of org you're working with. So
okay.
This is where I'll just say, those of you that are working with Scratch orgs, if you've done the work of packaging and have everything modularized, you're going to notice that force source push still works with all this metadata. It will push everything in the order of my project, JSON, into a Scratch org in its unpackaged form. That's what it will do. I can't move it to production like that. To then move it to between environments or get it to production, you have to do an install, and that looks a little different. And I'll show you a bash script that I was working on today that will show you these commands more explicitly.
Do you have to convert it back to metadata?
No.
So making it into a package, doesn't that?
Making it into a package is the process that says, hey, I have a definition of some metadata here. Take a snapshot and then please make it so that I can install it. Once you version it, then you can install that version anywhere. It's just like if you're installing something from the App Exchange, and you just go to that URL with that ID, it's the same thing. You are installing a package.
And in VS Code, once you convert it to metadata, like Trailhead, once you've converted it back to metadata, you can look in that folder. You can look at all your different things. You can double check to see what's in there.
Yes, you can.
You still can do that with
absolutely, and that is, so because I'm pretty comfortable looking at that XML and working in it, it was really easy for me to actually start cleaning up metadata and moving things around. And once I learned the 1 or 2 syntax changes between the 2 formats, I didn't even have to bother writing a new package XML to go grab something I left out. I just copy, pasted, tweaked by hand, was off and running.
I'm always hesitant to change things in that metadata. I just throw it out and create it.
You could if you wanted.
I'm worried that I'm going to change something that's not going to match some index or
so
definition.
That's the great thing about source control, right? So if you did that and you committed up to source control and you completely screwed it up, just don't merge that thing. Go get the one that was good and go on your way. That's why it's a boost to developer productivity, because you can take risks like that to do it the faster way, and if you messed up, you're not going to ruin everything.
Once you put metadata into a package, unlocked package, is there anything that requires it to stay in that unlocked package, or could that package be like decomposed?
Broken up, decomposed. So right now, you cannot delete the definition of a package from what's called your dev hub, like where your DX stuff lives. You can do some uninstalling, but that's a place where you're going to want to join the packaging 2 pilot group, and you're going to want us to delete Berkey, who's PM over packaging. It's still really young, and so there are things that haven't been figured out all the way, or that he knows and I don't know yet because I just haven't run into it.
Is it SI? It's like I don't want to leave anything there that's going to like have to stay forever. Yeah,
absolutely. And so the whole point of unlocked packaging is to give you that control, right? And you can change where things live in packages. You can update the package versions, and you can absolutely move things between packages. Okay. That's a thing that you can do. You should have control as the person who owns the org, how you want to build it. That is the part of the unlocked name.
Okay.
Yep. So just quickly, for those of you that can't read Bash, this is when after I'm creating my Scratch org, instead of running a push, which you can see I just commented out, I'm installing the 4 packages, and I just hacked in a sleep, just wait for a minute, because packaging install takes time, and you don't always know when that's going to finish, so I just wait for a minute in between each, and then I assign some permission sets, we import some data, and then that's how you saw we could open up right into the app if you want to. If you don't have to hit setup and change apps, you can then actually use the P flag to go to a specific URL in your app.
Why do you use sleepover wait?
That's a good question, Leah, that we discovered together. When you're running the force package commands, they're more complex because more things are happening behind the scenes. So so we chose, oh wait, that's easy, it's built in, yay. You will run the force package install command, and the CLI will say, great, got that. That's happening in the background, check back with me later. And wait is just like, okay, that's done now, so install the next package, right? So that's why I went ahead and did a sleep, because when you're working with packaging, you're gonna get, it's async a lot of times. Whether you're versioning your package or installing your package, there's some asynchronicity there.
Is there any risk, like if it was sleep 10, like, okay, didn't finish in 10 seconds, now there's an error, or will it still kind of?
It will go with what it can do. Okay. So what this particular org does is if you install too fast, this latest package is the one that will give you a problem because it won't install. Your second permission set, which is your space management app permission set, will not assign. And you'll open up the org and the data loaded because the base package is there and some other things are there, but you don't have your Lightning app in there.
So if you're trying everything, but kind of get stuck because things won't activate for you.
Right. This one will keep going because the thing is that these packages and the way I structured it, the dependencies are like they are clean. I've worked out what can be installed when where, so that's an advantage of that. Yep.
Is there like a verbose option that you could then pipe through?
Yeah, you could parse and do some things, and that's what you'll see when people are setting up things like Travis or Circle CI. They have a more robust implementation that uses actual variables and says, if you see this thing, then do this. Yes. Yep.
Is the package ID on a specific version of the package? Or?
Yes. It is, and there are commands. So this is where Claire, I don't know if you can speak to. They're cleaning up some of this right now. The versioning and the number of IDs you have to track and which one is which it's a little rough right now. It's a little intense. So this aliasing part down here, the CLI does it for you now automatically. When you issue a force package create command, it will update your JSON to give you an alias, which is amazing. The one that it won't give you right away right now, that's a little harder to intuit, are these bottom ones. And that's exactly what you're talking about. This says, this base objects package for this particular version, if I say need to pin it in a CI system, you can now use an alias to do that. I like this version, don't go any farther, and this is just a little map that lets you be able to do that.
Now, and it's like a year.
There we go, right here. Are you two friends yet? Have you met? There we go. Cool, thank you. Other questions? Let me share some, I don't want to take up all the time, let me share some resources. And I will make sure that you guys have these slides to share with your group as well. So what you can do now is that sforce.co link is to that blog series that I talked about. So if you want to be able to spend some more time with what we did and why, that's there. The Easy Spaces repo that you just saw, that's how you get at it. And then of course, if you haven't heard yet, there's a thing called Trailhead. And you should use it. And you should use it to get started with DX, and then there is even stuff about unlocked packages. And we are working on more stuff right now about modularization, how should I even think about it, and how do I get started on the right way. So in some releases coming maybe around the time of Dreamforce, keep your eye on this space. So that's it.
I've got a quick question for the room. Sorry, who hasn't played around with Salesforce DX yet? Has not.
Who has? Now the fun one then.
I know,
right? Well, thank you. Who here has taught a colleague how to use Salesforce DX?
Who's been taught by a colleague?
Yeah!
I would have if I had it.
Aww.
Go to Salesforce Saturday. That's the other, along with governance, the other part is just helping other people get into this. We're asking people to work in potentially radically new ways, and that's, we all know, super easy, no problem, especially on top of delivering your regular job. So helping a colleague to be better at the thing that is truly difficult is one of the best ways you can also drive adoption at your company. I will just say, like, just if for no other reason, if you don't really love them that much, do it for yourself. Spread the love.
Can I say one of the most challenging parts of getting going in DX is getting going on a project of hooking, like getting your data in there for the first time, hooking it up to your local repo, hooking it up to your GitHub.
all the firsts are hard, right? Like we.
Yeah, no, but I've been working in it 6 months.
No, but I'm saying.
I start a new project.
Exactly, and it's like learning again. But I'm saying even if you install the CLI and that was hard, don't feel bad. It's a great tool to work with, but like somebody today, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we ran into you don't have admin rights thing, and I'm like, no, I've been a Windows administrator. So IT, can you help with the thing? You know, you're gonna run into silly stuff. It's not new.
But that's what keeps it fresh and learning. I mean, that's you have to learn through adversity. That's what builds grit.
One of the challenges we've kind of faced is you've installed your package on like a UAT port, and it's testing, right? So you're going to find bugs.
Yeah.
You're going to go in there, and you're going to edit the code and fix the bugs in UAT, and then how you systematically pull that back into source.
Yes.
So what we've done is we use GearSet,
okay.
And we can diff the UAT work against the source tree with that tool.
Yep.
But it's really expensive, and it's $150 a month for each user. So it's like to give every developer a seat on that is really expensive. So we'd like a better way of doing that.
So that's where that part 4 in that series, my colleague Renee talks through. He set up something like a server CI. And we did some automation just using the CLI and to do things like how do we manage our versioning. So it's not as fully automated as GearSet is going to diff overnight for us, right, or on whatever scheduled time you have. There are other tools that can help you get part of the way there. That's part of why then you're probably paying for that is that nice automation. You can fire it off of things like, hey, if we change our process, tell our developers you will check your changes in at the end of the day. Someone is checking in whatever happened in our UAT environment, then you could run your continuous integration and development off of then just the pull requests and what gets committed to source at the end of the day. Other people?
Yeah, if everything is in source control, why is it better to deploy the unlocked packages and not a simple git push source?
Yeah, it depends on a couple things. There are limits. So we're still on the platform. Hi, there are limits. So you want to be careful about how many package version requests you're creating a day. You don't want to be greedy with those. Right now, the point of view on our team, just managing sample apps and using packages, is that we will defer the version until a higher part of our branching strategy. Okay. We will keep with force source push until we're into more like a staging environment. And then we will provision a new version and see how it goes, because we want to be real careful with those things too.
Are those practices kind of documented anywhere? Is there a blog post or?
Yeah, and that part 4 blog post by Renee Winkelmeyer.
Well, what do you know?
Yeah, and hopefully then you'll see it in the living history of the Easy Spaces repo as well. We're going to really try to live what we think is great, and then update you when we discover something we didn't anticipate. But yeah, that's where it is.
Yeah, we're a little over time.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. We have a little extra time built in.
It's good. We're making Doug stay up late, everyone. So.
Woo!
Thank